There we go. Okay, so welcome to RingEX Admin Essentials. So today we're going to have a look at mostly the user and phone system side of things. And then at the end, there'll be 10 minutes just to have a very high level overview of performance reports, which is the analytics side of things. And in addition, I have some resources to share as well, things like video tutorials and guides, support pages, and some other bits and pieces, and we'll have a look at that. As we go through the admin portal, I do have access to your admin platform. Okay, so let's make a start. When you log in to the admin portal, this is what you're greeted with. Just as a side note, depending on what you have been doing within RingCentral before you come and log in, you may be greeted by this screen. Okay, this is just your extension. Now, this will give you access to things like your voicemail, settings, even be able to do things like change your voicemail greeting. This is all doable via the RingCentral app, but there is a web portal for it as well. Okay, all users have access to this, but if this is what you're greeted with, up at the top right, you will see My Extension, and then you'll be able to select the admin portal that you have access to. Okay. Now, as a quick guide, we're going to be looking at users and phone system. Okay, but beneath that, we've got quick access, which we're going to have a look at the majority of today. You've also got some tutorials. These are just the most common video tutorials that people access, so you might see these change occasionally. And then down the left-hand side, you have resources, things like communities, blogs, but most importantly, you have the RingCentral University, our training resource, and web cases, or more commonly, tickets. So if you need to contact support for any reason, you can do that via here. Okay, so let's dive into the user side of things, and then we'll have a look through that, and then we'll go on to the phone system. Okay, as well, as this is a larger group, anyone of the shy persuasion, you can use the chat as well to ask questions if you wish. I'll keep an eye on that. Now, in the user section, we've got our users, evidently, roles, user groups, and templates. So we'll start off with our users, and then we'll have a look at the other three options afterwards. So under users, this is going to show all the users that have been created so far, along with some information about them. So just to give an example here, Aaron here, it shows his number, his extension, what type of license he have. They're a super admin, their department, site they're attached to, and then if we scroll over to the right, now I am on a smaller laptop screen. If you're on a larger monitor, you won't have to scroll left and right. You can see how many messages they've got, and you'll also have an actions option as well, where you can copy and assign their details to someone else, edit their license, as in whether they've got a RingEX, the free Video Pro, what have you. You can also disable and delete their profile if needed. Okay, now in the statuses, so we can see Minnie Mouse here has a red status. That means that profile has been disabled. So Minnie Mouse is no longer able to sign in, make or receive calls, messages, anything like that. Whereas everyone else here, so AG Reception, Aaron, Admissions, Amber, etc., that means their profiles are up and running and have been activated. And do we have any not activated yet? And there we go. The grey dot means they're not activated. So these are all accounts that have, or sorry, these are all profiles that have been created, just they haven't been activated yet. Okay, so we'll go through and have a look at creating a user. Okay, so it's tempting to go straight to the big Add User button here, but best practice is to have a look at your unassigned extensions first. Okay, now we have some here that are waiting to be either assigned to a user or a user, that are put to one side for users, but are waiting to be have that user created. I'm not going to take up any of these, but you can see here we've got some that are just the app, and then some that are physical desk phones as well. Okay, I'm not going to take any of these in case these are earmarked for something. So what I'm going to do is create an extension or an unassigned extension via the button here. And here we go. So to create an extension, there's just a couple of steps to it, really. You need to select their location, domestic or international. I'm going to leave it as domestic. Then you need to choose, are they going to have a device or are they going to be without a device? So device is both a physical desk phone or the app, whether that be the desktop or mobile app. You will also see here how many licenses you currently have available. Okay, so that means now if I go and create one, it's going to use one of your existing licenses. Whereas if you've got none available, there will be a charge incurred, which will be displayed beneath here. But to start off with, I'm going to go without a device. Okay, just so I can create one that is not going to cost anything, basically. But you will always get, whenever you're creating extensions, you will always see an explanation of cost. And then as you're going through the creation process, a breakdown of what that cost is going to be. So I want to create one. Now, if I create them with a number, okay, I'm just going to select Florida because there's 6 numbers left there. So note here as well, when you're looking at different states, it will tell you how many numbers you have in your inventory for that state. So we've got 6 in Florida, and there we go. They're all in Orlando. So do I want a new number or do I want to take one out of inventory? And each time it will show you where those numbers are. Okay, I'm not going to go through this because I don't want to take up one of your numbers that are currently stored in inventory. But once I click add, it would then give you a breakdown of cost, if there is one. So I'm going to say I don't want a number, and I'm going to attach it to site. So this will show here, because I'm not assigning a number or using a device. So basically, I'm not using a license. There's no cost to this. So depending how many numbers outside of the licenses and numbers you have, it'll break down. So I'll go next and create that. And there we go. There is that extension I've just created without a number. Now, typically, if you're creating a user profile, you are going to be adding a number. They are useful though. Say you have a team that's dedicated to reporting and analytics, because within analytics, only the person who's created the report can view it and edit it. It's really handy if you have a reporting team, you can create one login that they can then all share for the purpose of creating reports. This user won't be able to make any calls or anything like that. So now to create a user, we just select that extension and we go in and create our user. Now you are going to see my unique inability to talk and type at the same time. So just bear with me 1 second. There we go. Okay. Now, when you create a user, you have 4 options: send invite and schedule. Essentially, these 2 options are the same. Once you create the profile, the user will then be, and you save at the end, the user will be sent an email, an activation email. And schedule, obviously, you just choose the date and time of that email sent out. Activate later. Again, it's pretty much the same as send invite or schedule invite, except you then, at a later date, manually send that invite. You also have activate by assigning credentials, which is what I'm going to go for here, because it means I can then assign a password and things like that to the user and make sure it's activated for the sake of this demo. Okay, so I hope people are using more secure passwords than this. But this account's going to be deleted in a moment anyway, so it'll be fine. Okay, so all I'm doing is creating their credentials. There's also by default, temporary password is checked. So that means when I turn around to this person and go, right, here's your RingCentral profile, this is your password. First time they log in, they'll be forced to change it. Has its uses, and it's there if you want it. Okay, so we then enter their information as needed. Contact phone and mobile. So if they say you've got people that have mobile cell phones, in addition to their RingCentral number, you can add that in here. Okay, and if you wish, you can publish it to the company directory as well. And what that means is if you were to go and search in your contact, either via the phone or in your contacts for a demo, and clicked call, by default, it will call the RingCentral number. But if you search for them, it will show the RingCentral number, and then a second option will be that mobile. And if you select it, you can ring them on their mobile or whatever number is entered in there. Okay. Job title and department. Self-explanatory. It makes reporting and queue management and stuff like that further down the line a lot easier if you can filter out by job titles and departments. And then we need to select the site that they're attached to. Okay, so anything I create today, I'm just going to leave attached to the main company site, just to keep it simple. Okay, you've then got their language settings and regional settings, and an option to whether you want to receive educational training materials on RingCentral, and if you want their information to be included in the company directory. Okay, but once you've got all that entered, you click Save and Enable, and there we go. Okay, so we go back to users with extensions, and then filter by name. There we go. So there's a demo, and they're now active and ready to go. Right. What we're going to look at next is what we can manage for a user. So I'm going to use a demo for this, but I might have to pick on, well, as Aaron's the next one down, I might have to pick on Aaron's profile here because it's an active RingEX license. It will have some information in it that's not displayed in a demo here. Everything we look at that you can manage for a user can also be done via templates, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, so for demo, we've got the user details, which is what we've just filled in when we were creating. We've got settings and permissions. Okay, some of this you've already seen when we created it, but we've also got their role. So roles essentially are the permissions the user has within RingCentral. Their schedule, so they can set their working hours if they wish. Now, any working hours that are set here will only impact their direct calls. It's not going to impact queue calls. So say you've got someone who's a bit cheeky and sets their working day from 9 till 12, but they're actually working till 5, they'll still get queue calls. It's just that direct calls will do something else. And then under security, you can reset their password if needed. All you have to do is select it, enter your, now I don't have your admin password, but you'd enter your admin password and then you can reset their password. You can either reset it with a temporary one or send them an email link and they reset it that way. You can also initiate sign-outs from all sessions and devices. Kind of handy as a kind of troubleshooting step. Kind of your typical IT, turn it off and on again. Kind of handy. There we go. Under device and numbers, this is where I am going to jump into someone else now. So I'm going to pick on Aaron. Here we go. So we can see the number that's assigned to Aaron. We can also see the device that's assigned to Aaron. We can edit this number if we need. Okay. And we can edit the phone if needed. Okay, so we can change the phone, reassign that phone to someone else. And you can do that by selecting the phone as well, by change phone, end user. Now, some of the phones in here, so I had a look at your account earlier. Some of the phones are currently order in progress, and some of them are phones you already have that you're bringing over. And we'll have a look at those in a little bit. But one handy thing in here is presence. Okay, so for desk phones, under presence, oh, I can actually see someone's already added one here. So you can add, so as it's their physical desk phone, via the screen and the soft keys, you can add, for lack of a better phrase, speed dials. The user can add their own, but you can set them up as well. Really good use of templates here. If you've got a team that needs certain numbers stored there, you can set that up and just apply it as a template. All you have to do is say number 4, go in, assign an extension, find who you want to assign, and assign it. And that extension, that extension could be a speed dial, primary line, shared lines, all kinds of things. Okay, I'm just going to remove demo here. There we go, let's remove him. There we go. The first 2 spots will always be taken up by the user. Okay, but you still have 98 other slots available. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to demo now. And have a look at phone. Okay, so I'm not going to spend loads of time on these settings here because these settings are the settings that the user actually has access to. So this is things like their incoming call rules, call waiting, hold music, voicemail greeting, that kind of thing. Okay, so this, all of the main settings that are in use, that are used here, will be covered during the user essentials session. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through these. Okay, group memberships. So in here we can see exactly what call queues or groups this user is a member of. Okay, so a demo here is not a member of any. Let's just quickly click on a couple. Here we go. So Aaron is a member of IT Service Desk. So once he's logged in and signed in, he'll receive calls from this queue as well. Okay, if you need to add them to another queue, you can do so from here. However, if it's just a one-off change, like you're adding one person to a queue, you can do it here, but generally I'd recommend member management doing it from the queue settings in phone system. It's a little bit easier because you can see who all the members are there and then, and it's a little clearer what you're adding and removing. Okay. And then we have emergency response locations. Now, Aaron, his name is, Aaron has not added any here, but typically when a user activates their account, they'll be asked to add their emergency calling location. Now, on the phone system for your offices, you can set them up. And for Aaron, it would then just be when he logs in for the first time, he just selects his office from a drop-down. But if any of your users are remote or hybrid and they work from home, you'll be able to see what addresses they've added in here. But again, they're used only for emergency response, emergency service calls, I should say. Okay. Now, as we've just been looking at what you can control for a specific user, we'll jump into templates now and have a look at user settings. So I can see there's some here that have already been created. Okay, so you obviously have whoever's building this out obviously has a set of templates that need to be created. So they're all here. But to create one, if you need to do that in the future, you just add user template and name it. Okay, there we go. So, training demo, you've got your template information. Okay, for any outbound calls, you can change your caller ID that's there if you wish. User details. Now, this isn't going to be user details as in like their name and all that kind of stuff. It's all the other bits like schedule, region, their role, their site they're attached to, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to work on a little bit of an assumption here and say like BCC Telecom admin, that is a dedicated team and they work set hours. Okay, say they work 9 to 5. If you've got a team like that, you can come and set a schedule. Okay. Let's make this a really generous one and make it 9 till 12. Okay. And then you'll notice under each of these is override user settings. Okay. Because if you then apply this template to a user, it'll then override that setting that they may have changed or might just be a default value. You can then choose whether they're going to have automatic call recording, all that kind of stuff. And once you've made any changes you need, you can go ahead and save it. And for example, although laid out slightly differently, like the presence to be able to add numbers to that speed dial list is in here. You've also got their phone settings. So let's say, for example, you wanted everyone within a team to have a specific voicemail greeting. Okay. You can set up that voicemail greeting for those users, set that here, and then via roles, you can stop that user being able to make changes to their voicemail greeting. Okay. Because everything that's in this phone setting section can be changed by the user. But anyway, once you've got it set up, you can click Save. And there we go. That's that template saved. Now, one thing you have to remember is templates are not dynamic. So you set up your template and you go and assign it to whoever you need to assign it to. If you make changes to that template, you will then have to manually go and assign it to those users again. Okay, and the reason behind that is within templates, there are certain settings that will initiate a restart of a physical desk phone. Okay, which is obviously not a good thing if you update a template in the middle of the day and then everyone on that template has their phone restart on them. So if you make changes to a template, you then have to manually reassign it. So to assign a template, we just go to Actions, Apply, let it think for a second, and then you can filter out and find exactly who it is you need to apply it to, and apply. Okay, you can choose to notify the user of a template being applied, and say, for example, you need to let their manager know. You can do that by adding their email. Okay. Now, what that means is the only thing I set in that template was working hours. By default, when you create a user, they have a 24/7 schedule. So if I go back to users now and go into a demo, there we go. We can now see he's got a custom schedule, and it's now set from 9 till 12 instead of 24/7. Okay. So templates can be really handy, especially when you are doing it for entire teams, stuff like that. On a side note, templates are also really handy as a troubleshooting step. Say you've got a user that's changed something that's causing an issue and they've forgotten what it is they've changed. You can just take the template for whatever team they're on, apply it to them, and as long as you make sure it overrides everything, it will reset their profile back to what it should, the default should be for their team. So templates can be handy as a troubleshooting tool as well. Okay, so we'll have a look at roles, and then we shall have a look at user groups, and then we'll have a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, so in our roles here, there are predefined roles which are preset with a description on them, and you can have custom. Oh, there's actually some custom ones here, and whoever set these up, hats off to them. They've actually put a description of what the custom role is for. And these, what roles do is control the permissions that users have to the RingCentral platform. So let's go and create a role here. Now, whenever you create a role, you have to select a role as a starting point. Best practice is always start with the least amount of access. Okay. And the best practice here is because it's easier. Say you are building a role for someone who has some admin access, but not all admin access. It's easier to start from here and give them access to everything. And then if they find they don't have access to it, they can come back and ask, rather than accidentally giving them too much access and they change something they shouldn't have without realizing. So I always recommend starting at the lowest access point. Go next. You name it and add a description. So whoever's created your custom ones has already done that. And then you can choose exactly what permissions you want them to have. So really simple one. Say, for example, whoever's got this is going to be assigned this role. You don't want them to have access to voicemail. You can remove it. Okay. Or you want them to have voicemail, but you don't want them to be able to download those voicemails. So you can remove that function there as well. Okay. Before anyone asks what the definition of each of these permissions is, I can never remember them all. Okay. So what I'll do is in the follow-up email, I have a link to our support page, which will give you the definitions of each of these permissions. So if it's something if it's something you are going to be having to deal with, you will have those definitions. I'll include it in the follow-up email after this session. Let's add a couple of things in here to set up this role. Once you've got it set up, you can create the role. It will now ask you if you want to assign it to anyone now or later. So I'm just going to go later for now. Okay, right. I'm going to pick on billing BCC employees here. So when you open a role, it will give you the overview of who it's going to be assigned to. Overview of what permissions it has and does not have, and who it's assigned to. Okay. Once you've got the role created as well, you have an edit option. But once you've created your role and saved it, you then have this option to set it as default. And I'll explain why that might be useful in a moment. Okay. So where's our training demo one gone? There we go. So we're now going to go and assign this because it's not assigned to anyone. We add a user. We're going to add it to a demo and assign. And that's it done. Roles are dynamic. So if you apply it to a user, it will instantly take effect. If you make a change to a role, those changes will instantly take effect to everyone that's already assigned that role as well. And the reason behind this is the roles don't require phones to be restarted, basically. So if you make any changes here, it's instantaneous for everyone that's currently assigned that role. Okay. Now, I mentioned the default option here. So in predefined and in custom, you can set them as a default role. And that's highlighted here. So when you create a user, by default, they'll have the standard international role. Okay. But you can set whatever role you like as the default. And the reason this is handy is if you delete a role, anyone that is currently assigned that role will be defaulted back to this, or whatever role you have set as the default. Just to keep that in mind. Okay, great. User groups. I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail here. I'll look at this more from the phone system side for things like call queues and stuff like that. So for call queues, whoever's a supervisor or manager of a call queue, they can monitor the people that are assigned as members of that queue. User groups does the same thing, except you don't have to be a manager of that queue. So what we can do here is, if we wanted to, we could create a group. We can add the members. I'm going to pick someone who's in this room. Okay, I'm going to pick Aaron as well. Okay, so in a group, you select all the people you want to be in that group, including who you want the manager of the group to be. Okay, so now when we go to the next stage, okay, I'm not going to submit this in case Aaron gets some random email that causes any confusion. So now I want Aaron to be the manager. So that now means once I submit this, okay, no matter what queue a demo is on, Aaron will be able to do things like monitor his calls, all that kind of stuff. This tool is really handy for like training purposes. If you've got a new hire and you want them to be able to listen into calls, you can set up a group with a couple of agents or a couple of employees and then allow that new user to listen in on their calls. Can also be used for like training, quality purposes, all sorts of stuff. Okay, but I'll talk more about that from the phone system side in a little bit. Okay, right, so let's get a bit of housekeeping done because we're not going to need those roles and templates and user that we've just created. So let's get those deleted. So we'll start with templates. So to delete our training demo template, you go to Actions and Delete. That's it. That template is now gone. One thing you have to note is deleting is permanent. Once you've deleted something, it's gone. Anyone that had that template applied to them, unless they've made changes, that template will still be applied to them. It's just the template's now gone. It can't be applied to anyone new. Roles, a little bit different. You have to select the role you want. So training demo, scroll to the bottom, and there's the delete option. Okay. Now, again, just a reminder, best practice, we say when deleting roles, anyone that is currently assigned that role, make sure they are moved to their new role before you delete the role that you're deleting, because they will be defaulted back to standard international or whatever you have selected as that default. So for example, if it's a group of users that have some admin access, you'll be removing that by deleting it. Okay, because they'll go back to standard that has no admin access. There we go. But once you've deleted it, it's now gone. Okay, and now we'll get rid of a demo as well. Now again, best practice here. So we don't recommend deleting straight away. What we recommend doing is disabling. Okay, so in all intents and purposes, that profile's now gone. The user can't sign in, they can't make and receive calls, messages, anything like that. Now, yes, the number is still going to be assigned to that profile, and they're still going to have a license. But what it then allows you to do is, if for any reason you need to download any of their recorded calls, voicemails, see their messaging history, you have access to that and can download it. Then once you decide you've got it all or you don't need it, you can then go on and delete the user. Okay. Once you delete a user, all that information's gone. The only thing that remains is call logs for reporting purposes. Okay. So you do get a warning saying everything will be deleted, recordings, all that sort of stuff. And when you delete, it's thinking, give it a second. Yes, I forgot about that. So that user, a demo, did not have a number attached to him. So when I finally selected delete, it just let me delete him. If I was to delete Aaron here, because Aaron has a number and a license, it will say, are you sure you want to delete all recordings? It'll give me that message. And then it'll give me a message to say, what do you want to do with the number? Do you want to move it back to your inventory? Do you want to assign it to another user, or do you want to delete it? Okay, you can select whichever one you need, and then it's done. So inventory will send it back to your inventory so you can use it somewhere else or for someone else. Delete means that number is gone. Okay, or you can assign it to another person. A use case scenario here is, say it's a high level person in your organization and they're leaving. Just to make sure there aren't any loose ends tied up, you could assign that number to someone else for, say, I don't know, the next couple of months. So that case, if anyone rings that number thinking they're going to be getting in touch with the person that's left, there's someone there answering the phone on that number that can deal with any queries, let them know they've gone, and then after a couple of months, shut that number down. Okay, so just a use case scenario. There we go. So let me double check. Yep, demo's gone. Our training demo's gone. And our template's gone as well. Oops, no. Template's gone as well. Okay, great. Right. In that case, then, let's have a look at phone system. So this is where we are going to be looking at. There's going to be some features in here that you guys are not using. If I start to talk about one of those features, please just shout at me and we'll move on. Okay. I'd rather spend the time looking at the settings and features that you guys are going to be using. Okay, so again, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So on the company info, there's not a lot you can do here, I'll be honest. So you have your main site and any additional sites you have created. To create a new site, just click on New Site. And there we go. We can enter the site name, address, if there's a direct number, caller ID you want to use, all that kind of stuff. You can add that all in here. And once you've done that, you will then have a new site. Or if it's an existing site like AG Center here, you can see what information is currently entered for them and make any changes if needed. Okay, and if you really need to, I'm keeping my mouse way away from this, the only option you have under Actions is Delete. Okay. Everything else that's managed for each site is actually under the Auto Receptionist option, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay. Now, phone numbers. Fairly self-explanatory. This is all the numbers that you have. Okay, so this will show all the numbers that you've got, who or what it's assigned to. Okay, whether it's a desk phone, a site number, a soft phone, all that kind of stuff. Okay, we've then got numbers in use, which will just show the numbers that are currently being used. So in total, you have 133 numbers, but there's currently only 123 in use. Okay, numbers in your inventory. There we go. So these are those 10 numbers that are not in use, and these are literally just sitting here waiting to be assigned to wherever it is you need to be using them. Port in. Oh, excellent. I don't actually get to see this often in a live account. So here we go. So port in, these are numbers that are being ported in from whatever system you were using to RingCentral. You can see the orders here. If you open it up, you will see what numbers included in that port, and it will also show what the placeholder number is. So whoever currently has this as a placeholder phone number, this is the number you will get once it goes live and is fully up and running. Okay, you've also got the status. So green is good, orders completed, processed, done. It's just waiting. It's now literally a case of one of the techs has to put that number where it needs to be. Gray means the order's in progress. So that means it's still in process of being ported in. And if you get one with red, that means something's gone wrong. Okay, but you don't have to worry about that because it's our technicians that will look after all of that for you. And it's the same for any number requests. You don't have any here, but they'll show up in a very similar way. They'll have statuses. Gray means in progress, green completed, red something's gone wrong. But again, it's our technicians that will look after that if anything does go astray in a port or a new number request. Okay, so what can you do with these numbers? So let's pick on someone here. I'm going to pick on Megan. So if you go into one of these numbers, there's not much you can actually do in here. So you can go in and choose what type of number it is. Okay. And what caller ID is going to be associated with that number. Okay, if that number's been attached to an office, it will come up here, or you can add a custom one if you wish. And you can also see what type of device that number is assigned to. Okay, but that will actually take me to a different part of the admin page here. And here we go, let's have a look at this one. Yep. So this one here is sometimes you'll get this extra little bit of information. So this is obviously a direct number, and any calls coming into it is going to go to this extension. Okay, this call group, call queue. And numbers in inventory, these are unused numbers. It will display a little bit different. It just gives you information about the number. There's nothing you can do with that there until you use it. Okay, so the way you'd use it is, say, when you create an extension. So these numbers are just sitting there. So like when we created a user earlier, you create an extension, and then if you selected this number, you would see that number disappear from inventory and go over to the user side of things. Or when you're setting up a phone, if you select this number, it will then disappear from inventory and be applied to that device. Which brings us into Auto Receptionist. Okay, now, this is where we have control over our IVRs and stuff like that. So first of all, let's start with general settings. So this is where we can have more control over our sites. Okay, so the one I picked on when we were looking at company info was AG Center, so I'll pick on this one again. But once you open up each one here, you can then see their schedule. Okay, so there's obviously a custom schedule set up here. So this office is only open from 8 till 5. Call handling. Any calls coming into this site will hit an IVR menu, and it will go to this particular IVR. Okay, I don't know how big that site is, but if it's a big site, you could be really mean and send it to a specific user. You can send it to multiple users, say a dedicated call queue. Use case example here, say you've got a dedicated reception team for an office and they handle all inbound calls. You can set up that queue, all calls go into them, and then they redirect off to where it needs to go. Direct to voicemail, announcements, or a shared line if needed. Okay. Now, because this site has a schedule, we've got closed hours. So after hours, it's already set to go to an announcement. And I should mention, pardon me, that even though the business hours goes into an IVR, that could then go onto a call queue or another IVR or a direct number. Voicemails and announcements, we'll look at them in the group section because you can set up dedicated announcements, things like that. Then custom rules, there's none set up, but you can set up custom rules. So say, for example, public holidays. If you know the office is going to be closed on the public holidays, you can set up custom rules for those dates and an announcement that if someone rings on those dates, they automatically get the announcement saying, sorry, we're closed today, we open again tomorrow at 9 a.m. or whatever you need that announcement to be. Custom rules will allow you to do that. Okay, now looking at this, let's have a look at animal shelter. So looking at this, I'm assuming operating hours for each site, each call queue is being managed by the site rather than at a call queue level. Is that correct?
Yes, they're being managed at a site level.
Great. Okay. So that's fine because you can actually manage operating hours in two different ways. You can either do it at site level, but if you've got, say, a site that has some teams work some hours and another team works a different set of hours, you can also control the schedule per queue if you need to. And I'll show you where that is just in case it is something you need. Call recording for the site. Call recording is being set to on demand for the site, which means people who receive calls can choose if they wish to record it or not. You can change that here. And if you are using automatic recording, you'll be able to choose how the caller is notified of that. Okay. Robocalls, you can choose whether to block them or not. Okay, and what their message, you can hear the message they're played if it is an identified robocall, and you can change the regional settings for that site if you need to. Okay, so really simple and straightforward. So we can see here, I'm just going to click on a couple of these for call handling. So AG Center goes into IVR Day AG, Animal Shelter goes into IVR. Whoever set these up, thank you very much. You've made my life very easy. So you've got a dedicated IVR for each site. I'm assuming I haven't clicked on all of these.
Yes, we have a
Nice.
dedicated IVR for each site.
That is, so whoever is responsible for setting that up for you, give them a pat on the back.
That is Doug.
Thank you, Doug. You've made my life very, very easy. So you've got a dedicated IVR for each site, which neatly leads me into the IVRs. Okay, so in here we can go and see the yeah, definitely give them a pat on the back. So we can see the IVRs and a good naming convention as well. Wouldn't believe the number of times I've come in and seen some very strange naming conventions. So all of these IVRs are editable and set up for you. Is there more IVRs to come, or is this all of them?
Oh, there's much more to come.
There's more to come, Grant.
Oh, yeah.
Right, now, if we want to set up an IVR, we can go, here we go, new IVR menu. I lost the button for a moment there. We select what site we want that IVR to be attached to. Okay. I'm going to leave this one and call it training demo. Now, question of curiosity, does each site have a direct number? Or is it one number and then the IVR splits out to all the sites from there?
Each one's going to have its own number. So
each one's going to have its own.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Okay, so each site's going to have its own direct number, and then that number will then lead into the IVR for each site. That's fine. Okay, but we've just set up and created an IVR here. So if you need to create one, here we go. It gives you a bit of information. Now our prompt. Now for IVRs, you can either use text-to-speech or you can record your own IVR and use a real a human voice basically to say, please press 1 for this, press 2 for that. There we go. My inability to type and talk at the same time again. Grammatically not correct, I realize, but I'm putting a full stop between those two. Okay, so type it out. If you are using text-to-speech, I would recommend a full stop between each option, okay, because it gives a proper pause then. Likewise, if you are using hash, pound, or star, use the word, not the symbol, because text-to-speech doesn't really like those symbols for some reason. Okay, but once you've got that, you can save it, and then we can go to our key presses. So to add a key, we'll start with key press 1. Now, just to show an example here, in case this is something you go and do in the future, I will use animal adoptions, save it. Then for key press 2, I will make that a, whoops. Oh, I used to work for a guy called Matt Smith. There we go. So you can have IVRs connecting to other IVRs, as we've done here, and you can have it connecting to individuals, call queues, all sorts of stuff. Well, I've just done a very simple one here. Once that's done, your IVR is set up. All you need then is a site to link into that IVR. So let me go back to general settings. Okay, I'm not actually going to save this, but say you have a number for your main site, calls coming into that main, oh, actually, no, I'll use that one because it's set up for an IVR. You can then go, it's coming into an IVR, edit, you can choose what IVR you are using. So you could go and choose demo, save it, and that means any calls coming into this site will then get that. Please press 1 for ABC, press 2 for XYZ, and off you go. So they're really simple. Okay. And I'll be honest, setting an IVR up per site is by far the easiest way to manage IVRs. But you can tie IVR, you can stack IVRs, tie them into one another. So as an example, the IVR menu option here, personally for creating and managing individual IVRs, this is the easiest way to do it. However, if you have IVRs that tie into one another, the IVR editor is more of a visual representation. So let's open this up here. Let it think. Skip the tutorial. I'll leave that turned on for you. And there we go. So for example, here's the IVR we've just created. Call comes in. 1 takes me here. 2 takes me there. Do any of these have more? So here we go. Day AG. This is where it's going to send you off to. Okay. AG Center. And then, so these are obviously dedicated phones. Is there any that tie into queues yet? Okay, so we've got slightly different one here. We've got one that goes to an internal number, some that go to external numbers. Okay, so let's go and add one here. Existing menu, let's say that one. No, that one. Use. So there we go. What that allows us to do is you can then get, I realize it's now very small, but with the IVR editor, if you do have IVRs that are connected together, it allows you a very simple visual representation of what you're looking at. And you do have some editing options as well. Okay, so let's add another one here. Is there a voicemail one set up? Not yet, so I'd have to set that up manually. So you can have that, and it's a very easy way. And the other nice thing is you can save from it, but you can also validate it to make sure you haven't included any numbers that aren't in use or an IVR that goes to a dead end. It allows you to automatically validate it. On that note, though, you can validate them individually here as well, just to make you aware of that. Okay. Let's pick on this one here, prompt. Okay, that one's, which one was set up? Day AG. There we go. Here we go. So the one I set up was obviously just text to speech. This one's using an audio prompt. For the audio prompts, you do need to make sure they're recorded and uploaded and stored in the prompts library. Now, saying that, you can record prompts directly from here if you have them. So here we go. There's already a load saved here, but you can import them if you've already got them pre-recorded, or you can record them directly from the portal here. And you can choose your microphone. Okay, you can use your microphone, or you can enter a number, we will call it, and then you can use that phone to record the prompt. But all you need to do is start the recording, read your script. Once you finish doing that, stop, and there you go. You can listen back, make sure it's okay, and then upload it. And once you upload it, it is then there ready to use, and any IVR you create or edit, you can then select that prompt. Okay, just so it's not left in there and as a random prompt, I will delete it. If you need to as well, you can download the prompts from here. So just double check I'm selecting that one. There we go. Okay. Right, we'll jump into groups. So we've got groups, phones and devices, and emergency calling. I won't go through templates here, but essentially it's the same as the templates for user templates, except you can set them up for queues. Okay. How much use there is in that mileage varies depending on how your queues are set up, but the option is there. Okay, so let's go to groups. Okay, so very quickly, let's just see what type of groups you guys are using. Okay, so announcements, messages, call monitoring. Okay. Okay. Is paging and call monitoring something you guys are going to be using, or is this just set up as a testing something?
Just testing for now.
Right, okay. Okay, so I'll cover the three main call groups that are call queues that are used then. And in the follow-up email for monitoring and paging, I can include some links to the guides that are specific to those, if you like. Okay, so there are some queues set up. I'm not going to play with these. I'm going to go and create one. Okay, select the site it's attached to and name it. Okay. There we go. So when you create a queue, you've got two ways. You can either select the managers yourself and set up the voicemail pin, or if it's just going to be a single manager managing that queue, you can enter their email address and that manager will be responsible for creating the pin. They'll get kind of an activation email for that queue. And then they'll have to go and create a pin. Once they've done that, the queue will be activated. So what we need to do now is select our who's going to be our manager. Okay, so is that anyone in here that's safe to use? I'll select Aaron and I'll give him full access. If someone could warn Aaron, he might get an email that's saying he's been assigned as a manager for a queue. He can just ignore it because the queue will be deleted in a moment. Right. So once you've got your manager, you then go on to the next step. Oh, I forgot to mention. I need to reset the pin now. There we go. Once you select your manager, you can have multiple managers. You need to choose what access they have to that queue. Unless there's a specific reason for them only having access to member management, messaging, or forwarding, I'd recommend just leaving them with full access unless you have a specific reason for just giving them limited access. But there we go. We now need to go and select our members. Okay, who are the people that are going to be responsible for answering the calls going into this queue? So I'm just going to select Aaron, Amber, and Brooke. Okay. Done. So this queue, so those three people, Aaron, Amber, and Brooke, they will get an email, but this queue will be deleted in a moment. It'll be fine. Okay, so there we go. We've now created that queue. Okay, I've not attached the queue to anything, so they're not going to be getting calls. There's no calls going to be going into this queue at the moment. So the only way this queue will get calls is if either A, you give it a direct number, or in one of your IVRs, you direct to this queue. So we've got our queue details. Okay, and settings. And again, I said I'd highlight this, as I mentioned earlier, you are managing schedules at a site level. But if you ever need to, say you've got a site with teams that work different hours, you can actually set a schedule per queue as well, if you need to. If there's a template, you can apply that, change the site they're attached to, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you do want a direct number, you can add that here. So for example, you have some numbers in inventory. I can go and here we go. So there's 9 in Florida. I believe it was Orlando. Yep, there we go. I can now go and select one of these numbers. So if I confirm this, anyone who calls that number would then go through to that queue directly rather than have to wait for an IVR. Let's cancel it. Greeting and hold. So this is where you can select your voicemail greeting. Not voicemail greeting, greeting to the queue, sorry. Any hold music. What messages are then the same thing again for after hours. Now this queue is set for 24/7, but you'll be able to choose what happens to any calls that come in after hours. Typically, it'll go to the voicemails, the queue's voicemail, or you can redirect it to another queue if you wish. This is the most important part. Call handling and members. Okay, I'm actually going to set a schedule here. Let's set a schedule. There we go. Okay, now just to jump back a step, actually, because there's now a schedule after work hours. Okay, so call queue greeting is off because it's set to numbers will go to voicemail after hours, and that will be controlled down here under voicemail notifications and in call handling and members, which is where we're going to go now. Okay, so during hours, any calls that come in will go to the longest idle. You can set that to simultaneous or a fixed order. So simultaneous, every member of the queue, their phone will ring and it's just first one to answer it. And fixed order is you can choose the order and where the calls go. So say, for example, Brooke here is responsible for answering the calls on this queue and Amber's just a backup. We could set it that way, and that way Amber will only get a call if Brooke is already on a call or unavailable. The only thing to note is simultaneous. Longest idle and fixed order, you can have up to 100 members answering calls. Simultaneous, that drops down to 50. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Okay. You can also choose the maximum number of concurrent calls per agent. I always think it's a little bit mean giving agents more than one call at a time, but you can allow them to manage up to 5 calls at a time. But default, it's just set to 1. And then how many times will it ring before it gets passed to the next agent? So if a call comes in and goes to Brooke and Brooke doesn't answer within 4 rings, it will go on to the next available member. and you can change that. Whoops, you can change that as well as needed. After call wrap-up time, how long that member will get. Once a call ends, by default it's 15 seconds. So once Brooke's call ends, it'll wait 15 seconds before making her available in the queue again. So you can select anything from 0 to 5 minutes. It's just to give that member a breather and a few seconds to finish off any notes, whatever it is they need to do. Okay. And allow members to change their queue status. By default, this is not allowed. By allowing it, this will allow users to turn off any queues that they are a member of, to turn that queue on and off. So say, for example, Frank was a member of this queue. He logs in the morning. He could turn that queue off so he doesn't receive calls from that queue. Okay. Useful in some situations, and other situations, obviously, you don't want the members to be able to turn queues on and off as they need. Okay, but by default, it's not allowed. Okay, then we've got our members, and we can add and remove members as needed. We can also, if you're the manager of the queue, and let's say we know Brooke has to go and deal with something, we can turn her queue off. So therefore, Brooke will no longer receive calls from this queue until we turn it back on. Okay, just another handy feature there. Okay, now the wait settings. Okay, this is to do with callers coming into the queue. So basically, how many people are allowed to be in the queue? And you can set this anywhere from 5 to 25. What happens to calls that come into the queue when the queue is full? By default, they go to the voicemail, or you can play a message saying, sorry, high call volume, please try again later, thank you, goodbye. Or if you've got, say, another queue that you can direct them to. So say you've got two similar queues, you can set that second queue to help out when this queue gets busy. Or if you've got an external number that helps out, you can do that as well. What's the maximum wait time? Okay, so if someone's in the queue, this is the maximum the queue will let them wait before, and again, send them to voicemail or an extension or external number. Okay, so for callers that are in the queue, who do they wait for? By default, it's set to the primary members. Okay, but if you can also set it to overflow. So primary members will basically mean the caller will sit in the queue until a member of this queue becomes available again. You can set it to overflow, which basically means once that queue's full, calls coming in will then move to an overflow queue. So let's say the AG Center queue here is able to deal with what we've set up, what we've set this queue up for. We can select that, and then once the queue's full, overflow calls will go through to the AG Center. Okay, so that is an option. The other option you have for a busy queue is in pickup members, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, display settings. So this is when a call comes into a member. How is it displayed? Typically, I'd recommend just leaving it as is because it gives the queue name and the caller ID of the person calling. That way, if you've got people that are on multiple queues, they can very easily identify what the call is coming in. After hours, all quick queues go straight to voicemail. Okay, or you can play an announcement, forward to external number, and what have you. Okay. Custom rules. are like, as I showed you earlier, you can set up custom rules for certain dates, all that kind of stuff. So you can go and add a custom rule, and you can have that rule based on the caller ID that's calling, the number that's being called, or date and time. And again, so say you've got a queue that you know is going to be closed on certain days, you can set up a custom rule for that so you don't have to worry about it in the future. It will already be there and go to an announcement or what have you. Okay. Now, the other option to overflow is pickup members. So what this will actually do is I'm going to add one here. Whoops, nope, I'm going to add one here. Okay, and I will add admissions desk. Okay, so what this is doing here now is because I've added it to it doesn't matter whether I'm adding it to a phone or a person, it's saying, do you want the do you want to add into their phone? If I select yes, it means that phone will need a restart. So I'm going to select no here. So just in case that admission desk phone is being used for something, it's not going to restart. That's fine. I can go and set that up later. Okay, and it's just all it's doing is, you know, the presence I showed you earlier, all it's doing is adding the speed dial for this two presence there. Now, what this means is, let's pretend this is a person. If a call comes in and that queue is full, this person will then get a notification on their phone to say, hey, there's a call into this queue and the queue's full. Do you want to take a call? That then person acting as a pickup member can then voluntarily choose to take a call from that queue. So it's another option. If you've got queues that are known to being busy, it's another option to help alleviate busy queues. If you've got some pickup members that you work on a basis of, when you have time, pick up any calls that are coming in from that queue when it's busy. Okay, I'll remove them now, just so it doesn't do anything. There we go. And voicemail. So here we go. This is where you set up your voicemail. You can set a custom one if wish. Okay, or you can just use the default one, which is there. Okay, and again, that's during work hours, and then you've got it for after hours as well. And then under settings, you've also got some additional options here to do with notifications. So notifications, you can choose to, there is SMS, but I know you guys aren't using SMS at the moment. But here we go. So the manager of this queue will get email notifications for new voicemails, new faxes, and text messages. Okay, which I know you're not using at the moment. Okay, and for voicemails, the voicemail will be included in the email as well. As same for faxes. Any fax notifications, the fax will be included in the email. Okay, Aaron is the person that's going to receive these notifications. And then if you're adding it as text as well, you can do that. Okay. But you can also add co-recipients. So say within this queue, you've got a couple of members that are not just acting as people answering the calls, but they have a bit more responsibility. If you want them to handle the voicemail as well, you can add them as a co-recipient and add them in. Okay. So that way, it'll then not just be the managers dealing with those voicemails. You can have some members of the queue that are managing the voicemails as well. So the other two that are being used in here, these will be a bit quicker to cover, are message-only extensions and announcement-only extensions. So these are essentially the same thing, except one's going to take a voicemail and one is just going to be an announcement. Okay, so we can see there's some set up here already, but let's say message one. Oh, I need to select a site. And enter an email. There we go. Give it a second. There we go. It's created. All we need to do now is we can see the information that we've literally just entered. If there's a direct number, off the top of my head at this moment, I can't think of a reason for having a direct number to a message-only extension, but you can add one if needed. And here we go. So message only, so this will be a voicemail. You can edit that. Okay, and you can send the extension to this number. And again, just like the queue voicemail settings, you can add in the co-recipients. Really that simple. Okay, so typically message only and announcement only extensions, they would normally be used for custom rules when your office is going to be closed. So you could set up a whole load of announcement only, say one for Thanksgiving. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Sorry, we're closed today. We are open again on this date and time. And you can preset them up and then have custom rules that direct to that announcement. Okay. Or if you're using message only, direct to that one as well. So for example, these ones that are set up, they're going to Douglas. Or that one's going to Douglas. That one is staying within the extension, but you can direct them to wherever they need to go. Oh, that one's going to Douglas. I think that's the one I opened a second ago. Oh no, the last two are going to Douglas. So they're obviously still in the process of being set up at the moment. Okay. Good. An announcement is pretty much the same thing. So I'll be honest, announcements would tend to get used more than the message ones because they tend to be used for things like, well, here we go, they're actually named. The queue is full. The queue's timed out. Nighttime, holidays, typically when the announcements would be used. Okay. Right, so let me just delete that queue I set up here. So training demo, disable it, and then delete it. So queues, when you come to delete them, there is no delete option. You have to disable, then delete. For the same reason we say best practice for deleting user is to disable, then delete. It's so if you need any of the recordings, any of the voicemails, you can download them before you delete it, because once you delete, it's gone. There we go. And I'll create this one as well, delete this one message extension that wasn't deleted either. Wasn't activated, sorry. Okay, right, so the last two we've got to look at is phones and devices and emergency calling. Phones and devices in a virtual training environment like this is kind of challenging, so I'm going to skip it for a moment and do emergency calling because it's quick and simple, and then we'll come back to phones and devices. Okay, so emergency calling. Let's see if Doug's knocked it out of the park again. He has. So he's got an emergency response location set up for, I'm not going to say all locations, but several locations already. Excellent. So what this allows users to do is when they log into the app or activate their account, they'll be asked to choose an emergency response location. So with a traditional landline or cell phone, obviously emergency services will have that information, their location information. But because this goes over the internet, they don't. So this is providing it. So when a user activates their account, they'll be asked to enter their emergency response location. There'll be an option to manually enter it, but there'll also be a drop down with all of these options. And they can just say, right, this is the office I'm working in. Select that. Okay. They will be able to, so anyone who's hybrid or remote, they will be able to manually enter in their address for that purpose. And again, as I highlighted earlier, if they are entering in their residential address, it's used only for that. It's not been sent or tracked anywhere. It's used only for that purpose. And touch wood, no one has to use it. Do you have notifications set up? You do. Okay. So 911 notifications. So if anyone calls 911, even if they don't complete the call, a notification will be sent to this email address. Okay, this number, this email address. Okay. I'm going to work on the assumption that Doug's not solely responsible for that. I'm assuming this is just a placeholder until everything's fully set up.
Correct.
But within that email or within that text that's sent to them, it will be the user ID, site, time, date, which emergency services will contact, will all be included in that notification that's sent to that number and that email. Okay, so even if someone, say, dials 911, and then before anyone answers it, they hang up, that will still be recorded and sent on to the 911 notification, whoever's responsible for those. Okay, so it just means you are aware if anything happens. Touch wood, it doesn't, and it's not needed, but it's there just in case. And you can add multiple people as well. You don't have to have one person or one department. Okay. Now, I've just realized I forgot to show you something in here. You can delete them. Okay. This one's not been activated yet, but I don't know why. But in here, you can come in, you can change its name, what site it's attached to, and then you can enter its address. And it's really as simple as that. Okay. To add one, see, you enter the name, what site it's attached to. Okay. Now, I know this is a bit strange to say what site it's attached to if each of these are a dedicated office, but this is in the case of, say, you have an entire campus with multiple buildings. You can call the entire campus a site, and then you have different buildings within that site. So it just allows that separation. You then add in the address as needed, and once you've saved, you can add it. And that means anything that's shown here will then be selectable by an end user when they're entering their emergency response location. Okay, and that is not turned on, so that's fine. Okay. Right, phones and devices. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a challenging one to show via a virtual session like this. So what I will do, I know from, let me have a quick look. Okay, so from looking at this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have a combination of existing phones that you're bringing with you to RingCentral, and you have some new ones. Is that correct?
It's all new, but for some reason they're showing up as existing. So.
Oh, okay. They've been mislabeled somewhere then. So they're all brand new phones.
Correct.
Okay, that's not a problem. So if they're all brand new phones that have come from RingCentral, this will actually all be dealt with for you. So it's very simple. But in here, we can see our user phones. Okay, so Doug's phone, he's very popular today. And we can see, here we go. Depending on the naming, we can see what type of phone it is. Now, typically, depending on how good they are with the naming convention, you can tell what type of phone it is straight away normally. So I'm guessing here, anyone who's got a physical phone, it's just going to be their name and phone. Okay, and someone who's got RingCentral app, it's going to be RingCentral app. But you can normally tell if it has a serial number, it is a physical desk phone. But you have some actions as well. You can change the phone or reassign that phone to someone else. I'm going to pick on Doug here. Okay, so Doug's phone is obviously all set up and running. Okay, in here we can see exactly what type of phone it is he's got, what the serial number, depending on terminology used, is called either serial number or MAC address, depending on the terminology you use. It's a user phone. It's a bring your own device. Okay, maybe it's been mislabeled somewhere if it should be all new phones. But we can also see who it's assigned to. We can edit that user if we need to. Okay, so what that means is edit is maybe a bit misleading there. It allows us to change who the phone's assigned to. Okay, we can see the site it's attached to, the phone number. We can edit that or remove the line if we need to. Bandwidth settings. Okay, now I'll be honest here, unless you have a site that you know has bad bandwidth issues, just leave it on high. Honestly, don't know how much of a difference it makes from high to low, because my desk phone and my app is set to high. Yet when I'm at home in the UK, well, not when I'm home in the UK, when I'm visiting my parents at home in the UK, they have terrible internet. It's like 1 meg. That's the maximum speed you get, and it still works fine. So I'm not sure what sort of bandwidth issues you'd have to need to switch to low. Because it's a physical device as well, you can set the emergency response location on the physical device. Okay, and if auto dial is something you're using, as I haven't seen anything in notes about it, I'm guessing you're not using auto dial or ring down, as it's called.
Only certain places, but not for normal.
Oh, okay, great. Well, if you are using it, it's literally just a checkbox to enable it for that device. So it's no big deal. Okay. So these are users' phones. So for example, if someone is using the RingCentral app, so like Eric here, you can come in, you can change phone. Now, typically from app, it's when you're assigning them a desk phone. You can also change who it's assigned to, and the same things here as with a physical phone. Okay, now any unassigned phones, okay, when you come in, so there's a whole load of, okay, so I'm guessing they're in the process of naming them fully. So this is an unassigned phone at the moment, so this is one that's not in use by anyone. You can set up and provision. So all we're doing here is getting it connected. So you can start by typing in the brand and model of the phone. What type of phone is it? It doesn't say. So let's just make one up here. There we go. And then once you've selected the thing, all you need is the MAC address, serial number off the back of it, type it in, and you're done. That's its provision. Once it's then provisioned, you can then assign it to someone. Okay, so to assign it to someone, we need to find one here that... Okay, so there aren't any here that are provisioned, but just to show you what it would look like, user phones. Okay. What it would look like is it would basically look like this, except all of this assigned to would be blank. Okay, so once it's provisioned, it will look like this. Okay, then all the assigned to will be blank. And all you have to do is click Edit User, choose the person it's going to be assigned to. And once you click Save, it wings its way to that person. Okay, but as I say, this is hard to show in the virtual environment without being able to provision a phone and do everything like that for you. So what I will do is within RingCentral University and within our support pages, we have guides, step-by-step guides on exactly how to do that, whether it be an existing phone, a new phone you've just ordered, or a phone you're bringing with you. It'll give you the steps to provision, assign, and move around to other users if needed. I'll include those guides in the follow-up email. Okay, because this is kind of challenging to show in the virtual environment, so I'll give you the specific guides for each of those things in the follow-up email. Okay. Are you using common area phones, paging devices, or shared lines, or anything like that?
The paging, probably not. The shared lines, not that I know of. And then the common area phones, probably not either.
Yeah, that's not showing anything under there yet. Okay, grand. Okay. So I'll say I will send you on the specific guides for provisioning and assigning physical desk phones, but it's a case of once you've done it once or twice, it really is a walk in the park.
What would be an example of a multi-user device?
So a multi-user device would be
a conference room phone.
Yeah, it'd be like a conference room phone, okay, or a the word escapes me, a hot desk. So if you've got a desk that's shared by multiple employees that are just working, say, a day shift and a night shift, so they share a desk, so they can each sign into that phone.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and common area phone would be more likely to be used in, say, like a conference room or something like that. Right, so completely lost my train of thought then, sorry. So within the admin portal, that's everything I wanted to show you. I do have some links, everything. Is reporting, as I say, there's 10 minutes set aside here to have a look at analytics. And again, it is a very high level. To have a very quick look at once it loads. So as I say, that there is a dedicated training session for performance reporting, quality of service, and live reports, if that's something. Yeah, they are. So you are using quality of service and live reports as well. So yeah, there are dedicated training modules for those that will take you through the full setup process. This is just a very high level overview. Okay, so it really is a walk in the park. You start at the top and work your way down. So I'm just going to change the date range to, or maybe this month. There we go. So there's a bit more data in there. So you then choose whether you're looking at queues, users, all calls, or meetings. Okay. And if I'm just going to leave it so everything's open here, so we get as much data as possible. But you can look at specific queues, specific to call types, if you're only interested in calls that are a certain length. So, for example, a lot of organizations ignore calls that are less than 15 seconds because it's not a real call. It's someone that's gone through and then hung up. And you can look at it by site as well. Once you've that set up, you can then choose the metrics that you want to look at. Okay, now my favorite button in here is Show KPIs, because I can never remember what each of these metrics means, but you can then go and select exactly which metrics that you are interested in looking at, as many or as few as you want. And once you're done, they'll be displayed here. And then we have our trends. So in the trends graph here, we can only show 2 metrics. Okay, but in here at the moment, it's just showing inbound calls versus answered calls. So you can see how many calls are coming in against how many are being answered, or how many that are being abandoned or anything like that. So you can see here on the 2nd of February, there were 7 inbound calls, but only 1 was answered. Okay, that's either someone's not doing their job or still in testing phase. And I'm going to go for it's just test calls that are coming through at the moment for it to be such a low number of calls. And you can look at it by day, by hour as well. And I know I've got this month selected, but it's only a week and a bit. If you've got a full month in there or a custom date range, and you can select up to 6 months, there'll be a week option as well. Okay. And then because we're looking at queues, we can now go down and have a look here. Okay. Not to give IT a bad reputation here, but as we can see here, I'm going to pick on the IT service desk. There was 13 inbound calls, only 1 answered, and 12 abandoned. So if this is something that you need to resolve or find out why that's happening, you can then select the queue, and it will take you to users and automatically filter for that queue. And we can now see all the users on that queue. Who's taking calls? So it's only Ocean here that's taken a call. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not getting the wrong name, but it looks like the Irish spelling of Ocean. Total calls, inbound, and so on. So you can see exactly who's answering calls, how long they're on them for, number of calls missed, all that kind of stuff. So there were some abandoned calls there, but at the moment, Ocean's the only one that answered 1. Okay. And then from there, you can even then click on Ocean himself and see all of his calls. Okay, for whatever date range that you have selected. Okay, now I'm going to go back to queues. Okay, because there's something else I want to show you in calls in a second. But in here, in queues, what you can also then do is download and save the report. Now, download will give you an option of Excel or PDF, depending on how much you trust the person you're sending it to not break an Excel file. But once you save it, there we go. It will then pop over. Now, as we go to the pop-out menu here, next to performance reports, we've then got that training demo report, and I'll delete it in a moment. But once you've saved it, you've now got some additional options to delete or subscribe. Okay, so you can set that up. Again, you can choose the file format, frequency at which you want that report to be sent out. So let's say you want it sent out daily at 9 a.m. Okay, and then all you have to do is include the email addresses of the people you want to receive that report. Now, the thing to note here is there is a limit of 15 email addresses. So if it's to go to more than 15 people, you'll have to start using distribution emails. Okay, but once you've got that done, there we go. Now select the email. There we go. Once you've got that done, you can then click Create, And now every day at 9 a.m., that report will automatically go out. There's a toggle switch to turn the report on and off. So say, for example, it's a seasonal report, you can turn it off, and you can make changes and delete it as needed. Okay, I'll delete that now and go back to my reports here. Okay, now I just want to see if I can find one in here. Okay, so in here you can also see all calls. I'm just looking for a specific type here. Here we go. So you can see all these calls here. Douglas makes a lot of calls. They all go from whoever made the call to the person that they're calling, whether that be someone internal or external. But you will see some listed here as like one callee, two callee. Now, if you click on the drop down, you can then see the path that call took. So you can see it came in, rang for 6 seconds, Douglas answered it, talked for 6 seconds, hold for 6 seconds, talked for 0, transferred, rang for 4 seconds, and then the call ended. Okay, and all the two callees means is there's a transfer or it's gone somewhere. So one callee here is Douglas playing with the park function and then picking it up again. So it means you can see the full path of a call if you need to go that deep within to see what's going on. Okay, but I say it's only a very high level overview of reporting just to give you an idea of what's available in there. Okay, right. In that case, then that is everything I wanted to cover in the admin session, unless there's any last minute questions that people have. If not, I'm just sharing a couple of links here in the chat. So the first one is to RingCentral University, specifically to the admin bit. You do need a login there, a RingCentral login, to be able to access it. But in there is a whole load of sort of little video tutorials and guides for everything to do with admin and everything we've looked at today. And then the second link is our support page. And again, going direct to the admin section. And this is more detailed step-by-step guides. Cool. Well, in that case, then, thank you very much